Hello! Welcome back to the Bald Book Geek. Here is a list of my favourite books of 2019. This list was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, so here is an epic wrap-up of the year, looking back at 2019 in literature, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Dark Dawn by J. Kristoff. Dark Dawn is the final in the Nevernight series, a beautiful, sprawling and dark fantasy set amongst betrayal and political intrigue. Beautifully set in a fantasy version of Venice meets Australia meets the desert, in a land where the sun's never set. It's a beautiful book, and J. Kristoff has a very unique voice. It is a tragedy that these got mislabeled YA. They have never been YA. They are adult fantasy. These characters are flawed. They're not perfect. They make mistakes, but they've got to come out the other side. Dark Dawn kept you on your toes, it kept you thinking, it kept you feeling. It was a beautiful book, and one that just blew me away, and what a way to end an epic series like Nevernight. I really hope he returns to this world one day. Bridge of Clay by Markus Zusak. Markus Zusak wrote The Book Thief, and Bridge of Clay is no disappointment. A coming-of-age story set in Australia, with a myriad of animals and quirky people. Great characters, well written, and brilliantly enjoyable. Fantastic book, and I got to see him at the Derby Book Festival. Bridge of Clay is phenomenal, and not disappointing at all. This book is kind of, I'd put it next to Kill a Mockingbird when it comes to the tone. The story is beautiful, the characters are well written and rounded, and it's just a fantastic book. It's not disappointing, and Markus Zusak is an unusual writer, and you could tell he was nervous in the interview for the Derby Book Festival. The Company of Death, written by the fantastic Maven, our fantastic vampire reviews on booktube and YouTube. This book is hilarious, but it's also dark and gripping. Set in a post-apocalyptic world, a girl and the Grim Reaper, girl that cannot die, and the Grim Reaper, and I literally mean a skeleton in a cape with a crook, go on a road trip to try and figure out what's going on. This is part one of a series, and it didn't disappoint. I was very lucky to get to have read this. She's a fantastic writer. This book is interesting, it's dark, it's funny, it will keep you on your toes, and definitely a worthwhile read. A boy and his dog at the end of the world. Set after a slow, quiet apocalypse off a little island, a boy goes looking for his dog that's been taken from the island. This is one of the most profound and heartbreaking and beautiful books I've read in a very long time. It will definitely push you as a reader. The story is emotive, it's quiet, a lot of it is just him, in his brain, one-man dialogue, this teenage boy who may never go home. It's a beautiful book, and one that I'm so happy that I got to read this year. Definitely up there as one of my best. Who doesn't love a good story about a dog? From the Wreck. Now, this book got published in the UK, partly thanks to Simon Savage at Savage Reads, and because he kept banging on about it, I ended up reading it. So it came out I'm thinking a little while ago in Australia, but it only just came out in England this year. This book is stunning. Think creatures, immortals, think a strange love story set across generations and a strange obsession. It's science fiction next to historical fiction. It's very, in that sense, you have the perspective of the historical fiction, and then it changed perspective to this creature, this alien creature, and you have her perspective, this interdimensional alien thing. And it's a beautiful book. It's dark and it's intense and it's just stunning. It really did surprise me. It took, I couldn't put it down. So, yeah. The Book of Dust, Volume 2, The Secret Commonwealth. This continues Lyra's story in such a beautiful and interesting way. Lyra's growing up, she's a young woman in this. She has to go on her own adventure, and along with her demon too. This book took me by surprise. A lot of people were naysaying the book. A lot of people didn't like it for that reason. Yes, it is a slower book, but it is a more intenseful book. The voice has changed. Lyra's older. This is not the Lyra of the His Dark Materials trilogy. This is a woman who's studying to be something else. This book, I love Philip Pullman, and he will always make my favourite lists. I adore him as a writer, and this is no exception to that. The Binding. This was another Derby Book Festival book, and I adore this book. Basically set in a world where people can put their memories in a book. Imagine being able to put all your memories and your thoughts and negative stuff in a book for other people to read. This book is brilliant. It was jokingly described as a kissing book, and the writer is fascinating also. Bridget Collins is a well-known teen writer, but this book is her first adult book. The Binding is a beautiful, slightly Victorian Edwardian adventure with mystery and intrigue, and just one that took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting it to be as good. Find Me, the sequel to Call Me By Your Name, kind of. So this book got a lot of people disappointed. Call Me By Your Name is a beautiful book, but people forget, and I think a lot of people that read Find Me were expecting it to be like the film Call Me By Your Name, which ends on a different note. In the book Call Me By Your Name, the main characters have their big re-meet at the end. They meet, they have their reunion. This book focuses on his father, but also his relationships and how people change. It felt really real. You don't tend to go back to first love, even if there's feelings there. This book is typical writing. He's very fluid and very poetic in writing, and just heartbreaking in places. He's very good at punching with emotions. A stunning book that spans many years and tells many stories. That's Find Me, the sequel to Call Me By Your Name. The Sleepwalker by Joseph Knox. Joseph Knox is a crime writer, and he was originally the crime buyer for Waterstones. He is a writer this is his third book, and he is a writer with a really unique voice. He broke crime conventions and played the crime tropes in a different way that shocked me in Sirens and so on. His first two books within this series, the Aidan Watts series, are brilliant, and this one just got better. A dying criminal, a confession, a cop with as many problems as the criminals. It's gritty, it's dark, it's Manchester, and it really is a beautiful reflection of British crime, and just a phenomenal writer, full stop.